Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Afterlife Podcast. This is your host, Pooja Chilukuri, and I'm very excited to introduce to you today my guest, Leena Zafary. Leena is a survivor of near-death experiences and spiritually transformative experiences. She has turned her journey into a catalyst for personal growth and healing. With expertise in energy healing modalities and a gift for intuitive insights, Leena empowers others to embark on transformative paths. She's also the chapter lead for IANDS of Las Vegas. IANDS is the International Association of Near-Death Studies. Her forthcoming book, Becoming Magnanimous, shares her own journey of spiritual transformation and holistic healing, providing inspiration and guidance for readers on their own self-discovery. Welcome to the show, Leena.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that wonderful intro.
You're doing a lot of things, yes.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming on this show. I've been very excited. I met you at the IANS conference. That was awesome. And I really am very curious and interested to hear your experiences, your story, your near-death experiences. Can we start there?
Yes, absolutely. Wow. So my near-death experience happened in 2014, January to be exact. And so in January 2014 is when my near-death experience happened. But I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory because it kind of, the whole experience will be more understandable. So at the end of in December of 2013, right around there, I was, a healthy mom. I was married, 2 young children. My son was about to turn 5 in January, and my daughter was 18 months. Just one of those, just a happy mom. And I went on vacation to see some family in Houston, Texas. And at the time, I'm living in California. So I go there, have a great time on vacation. I come back, I get sick, and I come back. Just a regular, normal, common cold. But it felt different. And by the time I got home, I had this intuition, this kind of like go to the hospital and get checked out type of a voice, because you're like, oh, I'm fine. So I went, and from there, got to the hospital, and next thing I knew, I was admitted. 1, 2, 3 days go by, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm feeling better. I want to go home. All I remember during the hospital stay is, can't be here. I gotta go home. It's my son's birthday is in the next 10 days. And I need to go home. And my daughter was also, I put her to bed, and then I disappeared. And so as a mother, I'm also nursing. So my body and my mind, I'm very much like, get me out of here. I'm fine. I need to go home. My kids are at that stage where they need me. And I don't really know much more beyond that, but I have this, it was almost like as if I knew I was dying or something, because I kept saying to myself, I can't go now. It's my son's birthday. Like, it can't happen now, but it wasn't like, no anything else. But next thing, by the third day, I got worse. I ended up in the ICU. And what happened to me medically was I had contracted the H1N1 virus, and that's very much like COVID. So it attacks the respiratory, right? So it attacked my lungs, and I couldn't breathe on my own. And in the total 9 days I was in the hospital, I wasn't responding to anything, and my lungs kept getting worse and worse and worse. I don't have any other memories beyond waking up, moving the oxygen thing off my face and saying, look, I need to go home. My kids are waiting. Like, I need to go home. I can't be here this long. It's like, I got to go. But I'm sure they pushed some button and knocked me out because I don't have any other memories. But around the 9th day of the hospital visit, I had my experience. And at the time, I did not know this because I'm under, but years later, my father told me that they had pretty much told him and my husband at the time that I was not responding to anything. Both of my lungs were completely gone, and I was not breathing on my own. They were getting ready to come and intubate and, kind of treat me that way. But something happened in that space, because in that space, I don't know what happened in the physical side and the here, but I woke up. Like, I literally got right up. I got up and I was sitting in the hospital bed, and I looked around and I'm in the ICU room and I see where I'm at, and it's nice and light and bright and I'm completely fine. I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Except when I look over to my right, I notice that my whole body is sitting there. Like, it's at the edge of the bed. So I see my human body. I'm like, oh, there's my body. So there's really not much, like that there I am. But I happen to look down at that point. I'm like, okay, well, let me look. I look down and I'm sitting just like I'm sitting in front of you on a chair right now. And I see my thighs, my entire body. I'm looking at my entire body, except I'm pure clear glass, kind of like, those crystal figurines that they have, where it's a 3D shape, but it's clear, you can see through it. I was literally that. I was just like clear thighs. I was like, oh, I'm see-through. But it's not like a thought. It's like instant awareness recognition, but there's really no like conversation. But I'm like, oh, I'm clear. And as this is happening, I hear a voice. And in this voice, it's kind of like a authoritative, female motherly voice. And the voice starts to speak with me, and she proceeds to tell me that, Leena, you have to go back. You have to go back, Leena. Your kids are waiting for you. You need to go back. But then she says, you're the only one who can make that decision, So it was almost like, okay, I was being told to go back, but I was taking my sweet time, and I knew it was my decision. And it kept proceeded. It's like it was talking to me, but it wasn't, it was coming from inside and outside, but it was kind of like, you're the only one who can make that decision. So make your decision. It was kind of like telling me to decide. Ooh, long story short, several years later, I realized the meaning of that. But in my experience, I was told to make that decision. And as I'm listening and like this is happening, it's almost like at the same time, I'm having this awareness of looking over to, my left side. And as I'm looking, it's like I see my kids at that age at the time they were. So my son was about to turn 5 and my daughter was 18 months old. So they were both kind of like sitting there. And I looked at them, and as I look at them, I'm finally like overjoyed and happy, because you have to understand, 9 or however many days it's been, all I do is wake up and say, let me go home. Like, I want to see my kids. Let me go home. So when I see them, I'm home. At that moment, it's like, like I'm full of love and joy. And I look up and it's like even brighter, lighter, but nothing has changed. It's when they say it's indescribable to describe what it feels like, but it's almost like it's light, it's bright, it's calm, but it's alive, So I'm thinking, okay, but this voice, it's almost like keeps reminding me, Leena, you got to make the decision, kind of like almost like in an urgency, like rushing me, but without yelling at me. Like, Leena, come on, you got to make the decision. Like, it's you got to do it. Come on. And right as that is happening, right before I make the decision, because I'm here.
Yes.
I looked up further on my left. I happened to look up past my children and look past up. And as I'm looking past up, it's almost like the walls disappear and I can see out into space. Like it's darkness, but I can see in the darkness. And in the darkness, I see I see shadows of people sitting. Like everybody's lined up in rows facing me on my left. So I'm looking to my left, and there's like a row, like stadium, like rows and rows of people sitting in the distance. I could just see from like their waist up, like, so I see a lot of people sitting, but it's dark. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I cannot hear them, but I can feel them. And I know they were all praying for me. And I recognize them as people here on earth, like family and friends. But I couldn't see their faces. So it was like, now I wanted to see who they are. So it's almost like the minute I looked and I like put my gaze on somebody, like as if I'm looking at you, I would look in the distance and I would look at somebody. As I would look at them, like they would just light up. So I could kind of recognize them, but they would light up and they would like lift up, and then they would come closer. But as they got close, kind of like halfway, I no longer saw like a human. I saw like a candle with the flame of a candle, like the light. So as I'm looking at these people are in prayer for me, my desire to look closely at them to see who they are would just, beam them up into light, and I would see them as light. And of course, you can't see light without smiling, So it's like love. And then at that moment, it was almost like somebody just turned off the lights, everything stopped. I don't have memory of coming back. I don't have memory of making a decision going into my body. I have like, I don't know, it was just almost like as quick as I woke up, as quick as it ended. And then, so there's a little story after that. When I woke up and recovered, like when I came back into my body, apparently I must have just gotten up, because a couple weird things happened. Number one, I got up and I have no memory of it. Number two, I was hungry and I asked for a burger. And I sat there and ate a burger. There's a picture of me because my ex-husband took it, thank God. And then I had no memory of coming back into my body. I don't have memory of conversations. I don't have any of those memories of any of that stuff. But, I got up and I ate. And another thing that puzzles even me is I was completely breathing on my own at that point. I had no need for breathing assistance. My lungs completely instantly healed. I was not told I needed to do anything. I literally got up, ate a burger and fries at the hospital, and left and went home. I had no idea what happened to me. I had no idea what happened to me. I had no idea that what happened is called a near-death experience. I had no idea that I died or came back. I had no idea that my lungs were gone. It was just like I went to the hospital and I came home. And so that was the story of my near-death experience, which left an open portal for all kinds of other stuff that's been happening the past 10 years.
Oh my God. And I definitely want to ask about all of that, but this one I have to pause. I don't know if you heard me saying wow. I'm just sitting here going, wow. You were definitely outside of your body. That's an incredible experience, Leena. Thank you for sharing that with us. During that time, when you were, it just touched my heart when you were seeing all those people as beams of light, like little candles. But even more, I think, I've heard so many near-death stories. And one of the things they always talk about, the ones that are asked to go back, is usually a family member, a loved one. There was an intense attachment. It sounds like yours was with your children, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
By far.
I didn't see anybody else in my...
I know. Do you have any idea? I'm just curious who that female voice could have been. Do you know now? I know at the time you didn't know, but Have you had time to think about that and maybe wonder who that might have been? You think maybe a family member from the past, or
You know, it's the strangest thing because there was a nurse who was taking care of me in the ICU. I do not know her name, um, but I remember something about her. And I don't know if this is what I saw in my NDE or the nurse that I'm describing. I don't know, but there was a nurse and I don't know her name, but she had light brown hair and she always wore it in a ponytail and it was like up to her buttocks. So it was like really
long.
straight, long hair, light brownish. I don't remember her face. I don't remember, like, I don't know her name because I was in the ICU while she was taking care of me. But I remember when I was in the ICU, the few times that I woke up and that I asked for my kids, I remember um I remember one day this nurse was taking care of me and I was like and I'm still getting emotional out of it. I didn't realize it was so, but she was taking care of me and I was so grateful for her because I was like, wow, look at this woman just taking care of my body, like, like a baby, like a vegetable, like I was so aware of her just being, taking care of me. But like that's all it was. But when I had my NDE, at first split second, I thought I recognized the voice to be hers, but I don't know her voice to connect it. But that's the only thing. So I feel like that might be true because I feel like nurses and doctors, they are like angels,
Yes.
when
Yes.
we're in situations, they just go in and they do whatever needs to be done and they take care. And, I, obviously, I mean, they took care of my body while my spirit was having an experience. Well, at that
Yes.
part. Well, the
Yes.
fact that I was separate, yeah. So I don't know. I just feel like these nurses who speak to patients and to encourage them and call them back, I want to encourage that because I think that was my nurse. And if it was my nurse, then these nurses have so much power into helping guide us back,
Yes.
connecting
Yes.
the earth from there, if that makes
Yes.
any sense.
It makes sense to me, Leena. It really does. Just I think your consciousness is still attached or can connect to the consciousness of the humans on Earth or on the other side because you're in between. And I'm just so glad that you decided to come back, to make that choice.
Right?
Yeah. I have a bunch of questions for you, but before I do that, I am also curious because I was reading your intro and it says NDEs and STEs. So the portal opened up and you've had some more experiences. Would you be willing to share one or two of those?
Oh my God, yeah. Well, wow. Okay, so an STE stands for spiritually transformative experiences. And those could be anything, and people have them. Mine was pretty powerful, but I think my NDE kind of set that up for me because it was pretty powerful. But it's a very, very long story because so much happened. So I'll give you nuggets from it, if that's okay, just
That's
because of
fine.
time.
Yeah.
But essentially, I had an experience, a transformative experience in a sensory deprivation tank. It's called the float tanks. So they're all over. They're just kind of like, one of those spa things. I'd never heard of them before. I'd never been to one. This is 3 years after my near-death experience. For 3 years, I have no clue that I had a near-death experience. I came back changed, but I didn't understand the connection because I didn't know. But when I had my STE, I actually had the continuum experiences that NDEers experience.
Mm.
That makes sense. Like, so my NDE, it was very much, I woke up in the hospital, I saw myself, I saw my children, I was given a choice, I came back and I didn't think much of it. But the fact that, you know, I was dying of both of my lungs being completely gone, right? To waking up and completely being fine and, you know, eating and going home. But the STE, I went through the tunnel.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm going to share the tunnel experience with you because there's a lot more, but I'm going to share the tunnel experience. So when the sensory deprivation tank is basically this room filled with water, the same temperature as the human body, right? Like maybe 1 or 2 feet high, enclosed in complete darkness, complete silence. And the water is mixed with Epsom salts. So it changes the velocity and the texture of the water. So when you lay on it, you float. So when you're floating in complete darkness, your consciousness can completely rise because all your senses are blocked, kind of like in a near-death experience. All my senses were muted, right? And I had that experience. So this tank kind of created almost kind of like induced NDE in a sense, in a weird way, without me dying, but all my senses were cut off. So I had another experience. Now, before I laid in this float tank, I'd never meditated. I was not spiritual. I didn't even hear the word meditation. Like it was not in my vocabulary. It wasn't. I never heard of the word chakras. I'd never heard of it, knew nothing about it. And so here I am thinking I'm going to do this fun activity with my cousins. I lay down, and the first thing that happens is after my struggles and my experience, when things calm down, it's in the pitch black. I open my eyes and it's still pitch black. In the pitch blackness, I see this beautiful wave of energy light, kind of like the smoke off the front end of a cigarette, beautiful waves. A wave like that came from behind me, and I just looked at it, and it came up in front of me, and I breathed it in.
Wow.
And a voice started to speak, same thing, a female voice, kind of like a strong, powerful voice, kind of like, okay, take 3 deep breaths. I was like, okay. I took my deep breaths and I inhaled. As I'm inhaling, I'm watching this beautiful ribbon enter my nose, and I'm like, it's going in my body. As it comes out, this voice starts to speak to me, and the voice says, because my hand was on my belly, and the voice starts talking to me about chakras. And because I was like I was being fidgety, my neck was very discomfort, like it felt like my neck was hanging. So the voice said, just take 3 deep breaths, relax. And then it says, those are your chakras. And then all of a sudden, whoop, my awareness goes, what? And then the voice goes, those are your chakras. When you learn about your chakras and you understand and figure out how they're connected to your life, you can begin to heal your life. I was like, okay. But it's weird because I'm at the same time listening. I'm thinking, what are chakras? And when I get up, I'm going to go Google it. So I was making mental notes of, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to look into it. So at that point, all of a sudden, I actually go through this tunnel. All of a sudden now, I'm in a tunnel, and I'm in a vehicle, right? And I'm sitting in the vehicle, and I notice I'm in a tunnel, and I'm going really, really fast. And as I'm going through this tunnel, I notice that the vehicle I'm in changes into kind of like an airplane. I'm like, okay, so I'm going through this tunnel, and now I'm in an airplane. And as I'm going, and it's happening at the speed of light, but it's also slow enough for me to see it happen. So vehicle to like an airplane, then I'm in this big boat ship, right? And I'm like thinking, okay, now as these shifts are happening and I'm inside these vehicles, right? I'm also sitting right inside the tunnel outside, watching these vehicle being turned into like the big boat. I'm seeing it from the inside and from the outside. I'm like, oh, now it's a boat. Oh, now it's this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns into, and then it kind of become like a bird. And then right as I'm approaching, I could see the opening, the light of the tunnel, and I could see like this lattice opening where I could see light coming in. And as that's coming and getting bigger, when I exit the tunnel, I exit as just me. I've shed all those vehicles off, and what comes out is just me, right? And while I was in the tunnel and in the tunnel looking at myself, like in the vehicle and in the tunnel looking at myself, I was also aware of being above the mountain where the tunnel was in. So I was up here looking down into the side of the mountain, watching this tunnel from the inside and from the inside come out. And as it comes out, I am now like in this, there's like two big giant mountains in front of me, and I'm on this, there's like 3 mountain peaks,
Yeah.
right? And then between and the below, deep, deep below, like very deep. It's just, I look down, but it's almost like I am the air. I'm not falling, not hanging. I am the air that's everything is in. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that. Oh, and I just see the most incredible stuff. Okay, if you don't stop me, I want to continue because there's a lot that goes
I
on there.
want you to continue. We have time, Leena.
You
This is so important. No, absolutely. Please continue.
you know, the experience itself is very mystical, and it's amazing to speak of and to experience and to go back to, um but it's kind of been like one opening, and one like afterwards has been really another big shift.
Mm-hmm.
The actual experience is great, but so much happens when we come back from an NDE. It's like
And I
it
definitely want to talk about that because I know that it's not easy. I don't know what I would do. First of all, if I've never been outside my body, but I can only imagine. This is going to sound a little weird, but did you feel weird coming back into your body? Like, do you feel in your body as you are right now, Leena? Do you feel the uncomfortable? Do you feel that was more expansive? Do you know what I'm asking? Like, I can't even imagine what that would feel like to be outside like that.
it's very interesting you asked that, because um I I've definitely, saw myself outside my body. Even before this NDE, I had another out of body experience when I was younger,
Yeah.
uh, that I had. But for me, I don't recall going back into my body, so I don't know that experience of, being there. But what I did experience when I came back, I didn't recognize my body as me. Like it's almost like I see myself, my inner self.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is gonna sound crazy, but I like I see such strong, I want to say beautiful, and I want to say like I feel incredible when I think about myself. I know this is okay, but at the beginning, it was so hard because I would feel so incredible. I would feel so amazing. But then I would find myself walking, and I would see a mirror somewhere, and I would get a glimpse of myself. And I would sometimes be like, whoa, that's me. Like I couldn't recognize the human body.
Mm-hmm.
It felt different. Oh, that's what I look like. Because in my mind, I feel and look different. But
Yes.
when I see my reflection, it's different. Now it's different since
Mhm.
I've done a lot of integration and a
Mhm.
lot of work.
Mhm.
At the beginning, it was difficult because it was almost like I didn't recognize my body for myself. So that is an interesting question that you asked, but now it's different. Now it's like I kind of had to upgrade my human body to who I knew myself to be.
Wow, that's powerful, Leena. I'm actually going to write that down because, we don't realize, our bodies are very important because they harbor the most important part of us. That's our soul, right?
And
Yes,
and and those
love
first few
that.
years, I was so consumed with life and with being a mother and dealing with all the after effects,
Mm-hmm.
which the first few years, my life actually fell apart a lot. It was really difficult
Mm-hmm.
to it was difficult to be. I don't know how else to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
It was difficult to be me again because I was more than the me I was before,
Yes.
but I couldn't. It was almost like I wanted to shout it through the rooftop, but
Yeah.
everyone's like, well, you're still you. But they were seeing the same me that I was seeing in the mirror, and they were still seeing that
Yeah.
version of me. It was
Yes.
almost like that. But yeah, I realized that um that this body, our body is absolutely incredible. It's
Yeah.
a representation of our thoughts and our emotions. And yeah, I kind of let my thoughts and emotions go wild for a while because my physical appearance was not connected to who I was kind of in between feeling. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was
And I
interesting.
really appreciate what you said about doing all the work to do the integration. Because while we're here on this earth, we have to live inside this body. And then for those of us who've had these experiences, it is hard to, live in this reality because you've seen a different reality, right? So I guess that's one of my questions is because I know you're also the chapter lead for the International Association of Near-Death Studies in Las Vegas, right? And I'm sure that it's a very good support for those people that have had NDEs and SDEs. What is it that you find in common, the struggle that most people have after they get back? But there are some struggles that you find is pretty common.
You know, I think, yeah, one thing really jumps out at me. So um, there's a lot. There's so many changes. There's so many things that happen to us when we come back. But the biggest thing really is depending on where we are on our
Mhm.
spiritual journey and depending on
Mhm.
what our belief systems are before having an experience. So
Mhm.
that varies for each person. And again, each person's experience is different. So I can only speak to my experience, and the people who resonate will be like, yeah. So my biggest struggle was first not knowing what happened to me, but dealing with all these changes that was happening in my body and in my senses, and then not knowing and then having the experiences. So like when they present themselves to my world around me, like my family and my friends, because
Mhm.
I don't know, they don't know the changes that's happening to me that I'm not even aware of. So now we have, you know, without realizing, that it becomes really, really difficult because I was feeling the sense of having to explain and prove myself and my experience and without understanding why. And I was constantly being kind of told like, okay, you're crazy, you're weird. That doesn't make sense. When I tried to share my story with people, like experience, kind of like this happened, like this happened.
Mhm.
It was almost like too much for people. So it was hard because I felt weird talking about it because people couldn't understand, and I couldn't understand that they couldn't understand because I wasn't understanding.
Yeah.
So it becomes difficult. Um, the best gift we can give each other on any level, on any subject, is the gift of listening to each other. We need to be heard, and I wasn't being heard. And because I wasn't being heard, I was struggling in that. And so as I've integrated in the past few years, part of integration is just being heard. It's being around people who can listen to you, accept you, even if they don't understand you or doesn't quite get it, but just allow you to be, because in that space, not only do we find healing and integration, but it almost like ripple effects. It's energy vibration, because that sense of calm is what we're all looking for. And when we come back so much, so for us to be validated or heard, it's almost like we get to sit in the calmness of it. And then the opposite happens when we're not heard, or kind of told you're crazy, or that doesn't make sense, or people kind of tune out. It makes it difficult, at least from my experience. It was difficult. And it was for this reason that when I found IANDS, it was like I found my healing, because I found people who understood me. And then with COVID and all these years, I figured I can't imagine how many people in the past 3 to 5 years alone, let alone many, many years, but how many people have had near-death experiences due to all the COVID and the illnesses that we've all been struggling and dealing with, right? All of us. So everybody's had COVID, right? And so many people have experiences. How many of them know about it? We don't talk about it. So my passion is to educate people about these experiences, that they happen, whether you understand it or not, or get it or not, they happen, because here I am. Right. And number 2 is to create a safe space for people who've had experiences to come and share and speak without being judged, to be like just in a space of unconditional love, because that's really what we seek to bring from there here, is that unconditional love.
Yes. And, speaking of that, Leena, thank you for creating that space. I think creating these conscious spaces is something that's close to my heart, because I feel like there's so much wounding and trauma, grief, loss. Life is not easy. And I think these spaces, for me, when I listen to stories such as yours, or my other guests, or what I'm reading, something, that someone's shared about their NDE, what that does for me, even though there are no cookie cutter answers, it somehow helps me put like a closure to some of life's questions. It gives me peace about it, and that's why I love listening. I binge on these stories. To me, it's like my spiritual food. It just helps me to realize you and I, every one of us that's listening and watching, we are magnanimous. We are not just this body, right? And I haven't had that kind of sight like you have. Listening to your story, what is so amazing is your consciousness seems to have split. Like you could be inside that vehicle and outside looking inside. That to me is amazing. You were, sitting up at the foot of your bed, looking at your body, so this is very, very fascinating to me, Leena. One of the questions I do have is, have I let you talk about all your experiences, or did I cut, like, is there another one? I don't mind, because you just seem to be this treasure house. So you can keep going. If there's another one you'd like to share, we're all yours.
Well, after I had both of those 2 experiences, in 2014, I had my near-death experience in the hospital. And then 2017, I had the spiritually transformative experience. And it took probably another year or so. Within the next year is when I actually discovered IANDS and the term near-death experience. So as you can imagine, my world just plopped open, right? So I finally found a term for what my experience was. And for the first time, I stopped freaking out, because after my STE, I really, really seriously thought that I was the only one in the world had this experience, and I was so freaked out. I was actually like, how do I put words to this? How do I share this? I need to share it, but how do I talk about? I thought I was alone. I really genuinely thought I was alone. So when I discovered other people, and in books, of course, some of my favorite authors like Dr. David R. Hawkins, he writes about this, and he's an experiencer. I realized that, whether we know it or not, when we reach certain frequencies, we naturally find other people. So we get to learn. And through that experience, I learned a lot about near-death experiences and the after effects and how it affects us as adults. And then when I learned about children and having near-death experiences, well, that started a whole nother thing, because it never dawned on me that children would have near-death experiences. I don't know why, because at first I thought I was the only one. So baby steps, right? But when I discovered that children have near-death experiences, I was like, whoa. I discovered PMH Atwaters, who's an author. She's a researcher, and I met her at the IANDS conference 2 years ago. And she wrote a few books and talks about near-death experiences of children. So she's done the research, and she's documented milestone of children who've had experiences and how, because how it affects them. The important I learned about near-death experiences: you cannot fake a near-death experience, and you cannot ignore it. Like you cannot deny it, right? Because whether you can't, it's a natural evolution that kind of happens. So when I started to hear all these stories, I was like, that's weird, because that kind of describes my childhood. That makes sense. Okay. So I started to resonate with a lot of the experiences of children who've had experiences, which kind of got me to think, let me go ask my mom to share any stories about my childhood. Right. I didn't think anything of it, and I did. And so I went and I asked my mom, like, do you anything from birth to now, what happened to me? She was, oh yeah, let me tell you the story of your birth. Ooh, the story of my birth. I don't know how much time we have put in.
Go ahead, Leena. No,
But
go ahead.
I had a near-death experience at birth, and although I don't remember my near-death experience, but the after effects that come on, the sensitivity, the premonitions, the knowings, and the questions, the attachment, all these ways it shows up, the disturbances that feels like disturbances in our body, because you don't fit in, you don't feel like fit in, and so everything made sense. So when my mom shared the story of my birth, it made sense. So I'm going to try to share that with you real quick. But essentially, my mom was in labor for like 4 days or something like that. She decided to have a home birth because the first birth, which was my sister, kind of gave her a little scare at the hospital. So when it came to me, she decided to do a home birth, and she was being stubborn. So she was like, nope, I'm gonna stay here. And and I was being just as stubborn, because it took 3 nights and 4 days. And finally, in the evening, my dad called the local doctor, shaman, that came and helped my mom deliver me. So first of all, after 3 nights of labor, right, I'm breech. So she tells me I was breech, sideways. And also the umbilical cord had wrapped around my neck, because for 3-4 days, there was a lot of struggle. And in that process, but miraculously, I was still delivered. So when I was born, I was told I was black and blue. Like there was no color to me. I was completely blue and black all over, like just, and here I am. And this is back in Kabul, Afghanistan. So ICU, NICU, hospitals, all this stuff. I'm a little old. was not up to date like it is here today. So here I am, survived, and that was the story of my near death at birth. But realize is that we need to speak and share these stories, because women are having near death experiences during childbirth. It's changing them. And children are having near death experiences, either through birth or through drowning. I've had many stories of children drowning.
Yes.
So this whole IANDS of Las Vegas is my heart's desire, is to really, really, really bring awareness to near death experiences from an early age, and to talk about it, and to understand that, it happens. And if it's happened to people, that there's others like them, and that there's resources for them, and that, it's a beautiful gift, because, here we are.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing those gifts with us, Leena. This is one of the reasons I'm having these conversations, because so many people have had these experiences, but they're not feeling supported, or they may be feeling very lonely. And so I'm so grateful that there are groups like IANDS, and you're leading a chapter. I have two last questions for you, and I won't keep you very long. And please don't feel like you're taking up time, because these experiences that you're sharing, that's why I kept encouraging you to share more and more, because you never know who's listening and who's had a similar experience. So thank you for doing that. I don't take it lightly, Leena, because all of the experiences that you've had prior to the experience, that was trauma, so when you're recounting them, I know that there's a danger that you may relive some of that. And so I really appreciate the grace with which you've shared everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, my last two questions. One question, this is a curiosity question. A lot of the people with NDEs, if they've been on the other side, many of them, when they're fused with that, like that unconditional love or that energy, and you saw that energy ribbon that you breathed in, do you think that was something like what people talk about, like the Christ consciousness, or the pure unconditional love, this pure consciousness? Or I'm just curious.
You asking if the light is consciousness?
The ribbon, the thing that came at you and you breathed it in, because I always think of God or consciousness as like we're connected to it with our breath. So that's the reason I'm asking that question.
Yeah, actually, it is. First of all, before I answer that, I just want to say I'm grateful for you and your curiosity and your questions, because what you're bringing out in my answers is it's where the love is. It's the reason why we share. Thank you for doing this. Yes. I've thought about that a lot, because we breathe. Breathing is a normal thing. We all breathe. We breathe mindlessly. Yes. And it's just it's enough to keep us alive, right? But it's the mindful breaths that we take is the ribbon that I saw. Because when we have intention, and when you breathe in like that, it's almost like in between the air that we breathe is also a ribbon of consciousness that we breathe. Because what did he teach us? It is in our breath that we find our calm. You can change the chemical reaction in your mental state, in your emotional state, in your physical state, by your breath alone. So I love your question, because yes, that ribbon is, I believe, available to all of us at any time right now when we take an intentional breath. Like you just inhale it and just allow it to go in your body, and it just fill and it just release it. It's that gratitude for the air, just a few of those, it shifts us out of fight and flight and fear states. Literally, we can go into coherence.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is leads right up to another part of my heart, which is breathing. I literally, so I'm also trained in heart math, heart brain coherence, right? So the power of that breath, if you learn how to bring coherence to your mind and your brain, there is so much research and data that has been shown that it changes everything about you. So your one question about consciousness, yes. When you take that deep breath, it's like you breathing in, whether you call it Christ, whether you call it whatever name you call it, it is that. Because I know that we all have different religious beliefs.
Yes.
So with respect to all of them, our breath is valuable in every religion. So every religion holds the breath as a sacred gift. So yeah, we are connected.
I totally agree, Leena. Across all religions and all cultures, I think we at least can agree that we have a common source. And the breath connects us to that source. That's how just when you were talking, that was the visualization that I had in my mind. It's like, breathe in source energy. It's like we're connected and to each other through the breath. So that's very beautiful. So that's a lot of the work that you do is with energy, or do you do energy work? Like, can we find you for that somewhere? Like, I know I have all your links that I'm going to share in the show notes, but are you actually working with this right now?
I am. So I got into energy healing. So I do some different modalities and tools, but I think more than anything, I let people know that healing happens from within. I don't heal anybody, but I do create the space, the energetic vibrational space for healing, which we are all capable of. But it's almost kind of like once you go somewhere, you can easily put yourself in that space, right? Like you can imagine. You can't imagine tasting something you've never tasted, but once you taste it, you can imagine the taste of it. It's like that. So yeah, I believe we are energy beings, we're vibrational beings, and it's probably the reason why I got into bioacoustics, which is all about the human body from a vibrational standpoint.
That is, to me, that's wonderful and beautiful. I've been in the holistic health space myself for a very long time, Leena, and all these different modalities, it's just the attempt to bring back to balance, isn't it?
Yeah. And you know what? There's no one modality better than the other. There are many roads to the same destination, many paths. And same holds true for all these different modalities. I think more than anything, it's the intention that we use them with, it's and it's with the intention that we receive it with as well. So there's definitely an openness of energy.
Yeah, definitely. This has been such a great conversation, Leena. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. I'll have all your information in the show notes for anyone that wants to reach out to you. And I'm actually very happy and excited. I just joined your IANDS Facebook group. So I'm looking forward to staying connected there as well.
Oh, thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for having this podcast, for sharing your voice and allowing us to come and have this conversation and share our voice and experience. And I just want to tell the world, experiences happen, whether it's to you or a loved one, that it's a beautiful gift and that we can learn so much from it. So thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you, Leena. Thank you.